God, thanks for a chance to spend some time this morning just hearing about what you've been doing within our student ministry, within the minds and hearts and lives of the teens that we have here. I just pray that this time will be one where we will know and sense and feel your presence with us, and our lives will be changed by you. Amen. If you guys don't have one, go ahead and grab it and pass those around for me. Thanks, guys. Sorry about that. All right. Hey, come on in. All right. What I am here to do, the reason why we're here is well, we got a couple reasons. First of all, I wanted to meet with our parents to sort of let you guys know, hey, your kids have been here. What have we been doing this year? I wanted to meet with our youth council. I wanted to just kind of bring you guys up to speed on some of the stuff that we've been talking about, going back and forth. And I wanted to especially invite some of our young adults who are here and who have expressed some interest to me. Hey, Steve, we want to know what's going on in the student ministry. We want to know, where things are heading, what you guys are doing, and how we can get involved. So that's kind of why I've got you guys here this morning. I'm not going to take too long, I hope. I'm just going to kind of go through and fill you guys in on some stuff that's been going on and let you know where we're heading. So, Revolution Student Ministries is what we call our student ministry here. Some of you might have known it as Soul Priority. Again, nothing wrong with that. I just sort of felt like, okay, we're heading in a new direction. It's a new time. Let's go ahead and try something new. So we went with the name Revolution Student Ministries. We are the youth ministry here at Memorial Church. We're open to all students between grades 7 and 12, and I want to emphasize that, all students. I want this to be a place where the popular kids can come and the outcasts can come and the musicians and everybody's welcome. Everybody feels at home here. Nobody feels left out. So that's what we're here for. If you want to follow along with what's in your folders, I'm going to give you a few blanks to fill in. If not, that's fine too. We have one singular purpose. It is to help students to love God, to love others, and to transform the world. We exist for these three things and these three things only. We want to help students to love God, love others, and transform the world. This comes directly from Matthew 22:37 through 40, where Jesus is asked, what is the greatest commandment? And he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commands. So I just looking at that, I think it's really easy to see where these things come from. The purpose of our lives, the reason that we exist, is to help students to love God, love others, and transform the world. In going with that, kind of breaking that down, and this is what we're going to be talking about today. This is on your sheets. Everything that we do, every activity that we plan, every conversation that we have, and every dollar that we spend should and will always reflect these three things. I'll go through that again. Everything that we do, every activity that we plan, every conversation that we have, and every dollar that we spend should and will always reflect these three things. With that in mind, I want to just take a real brief look back at what we've been doing this past year. Many of you know, Marianne and I have been here almost a year now, and I just kind of want to unpack where we've gone and what's been going on this year. Kind of on our fun side and getting students here, we've done the following. We did a Mario Kart tournament. We did a corn maze at Cherry Crest Farms. I'm very thankful for the families that were there because I would still be there, very lost. We did a turkey chase, so you probably saw Derek Evans running around Quarryville and teens terrorizing him and him terrorizing them. That was a lot of fun. We went ice skating. We did a Super Bowl party here. We went to the Hershey Bears game. Just last night we went to go bowling at Rocky Springs, which, by the way, does anyone here also feel that we has like made normal bowling just completely obsolete? It's just so much easier to do sitting on your couch. We served together. We went to the Sligo Food Bank. We did Operation Christmas Child right here. Some of you might have seen it. We loaded this place with games for kids and toys and all this stuff. We just filled shoe boxes and we shipped them off I don't know where we shipped them to, but they're gone. And we got to meet some needs there. That was pretty cool. Again, we served at the food bank. We got to box some meals and do some cool stuff there. On sort of our deeper level, in the fall we did a retreat we called it Breakaway Level 1, where we just sort of asked, how does God speak to us? How does he communicate with us? And we debriefed on that together over a weekend. We studied the Gospel of Mark. We just finished that, I think, 3 weeks ago. Now we're into a study of Philippians. At our fuel nights on Wednesday, we did topical studies on things like courage and surrender and obedience and all these things. It was cool. And then, of course, we've been doing our First and Goal Guys Bible study about twice a month. I've been having a handful of guys at my house. Right now, there's only 3 or 4 of us meeting every other week, but it's been great. We've been seeing some really, really good things coming from that. I just, throughout the whole year, I just have to tell you guys that this has been really good, that we're seeing God do some awesome things. Now, this is not like to encapsulate everything, but on my first Wednesday night, we had 3 students here. I had no idea what to expect. I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but I have to tell you, now we are sometimes seeing up to 15 students come, and students have been inviting their friends without even being pushed to. It's not that I don't want them to invite their friends, it's that hasn't really been sort of our push or our focus right now. It's just sort of been getting our hands around, what's already going on, and we are seeing students who are inviting their friends, and I mean, that's just awesome. As many of you know, we don't have the biggest facilities, we don't have the biggest budget, we don't have the flashiest program, or even the most dynamic youth pastors or youth staff, but God is doing something here. It's been neat, it's been amazing, and those of you who've been able to join us for a Sunday or Wednesday, you've seen it, and it's been great. That being said, I have to tell you that I believe strongly that while what is happening here is good, it's not yet what it could be. I believe firmly and strongly that God has a next step for our student ministry, and that's what I want to spend some time on this morning. I spend a lot of time, probably a surprising amount of time, just sort of like thinking and dreaming and asking questions to people and to God and just trying to figure out, okay, where are we and where could we be? And the question that I've been asking God recently is this. How can we create a youth ministry that creates space for you to work in students' hearts, minds, and lives? What are the essential elements? What are the things that we need to be able to do student ministry well and to create that space for God to do what He wants to do? The answer that I'm starting to find and I'm sort of trying to implement into our program is this, that there are 3 parts, and again, this should be on your sheet, 3 parts that are essential to student ministry. I think that you need large group gatherings, like what we do on Sundays and Wednesdays. I think that you need small group get-togethers, chances for students to really connect intimately with each other and with God. And I think that you need service opportunities. You need large group gatherings, small group gatherings, and service opportunities. I don't believe, and you can write this down if you want to as well, you do not have a true environment for discipleship if you don't have these 3 things. Now, just so we're all aware, I didn't come up with these, I didn't write this stuff. There are people that are a whole lot smarter than me that have studied this stuff and have kind of written about these things. I'm just taking advantage of their hard work. But if you want one resource to be pointed to me, it would actually be the Gospels. It's when you look at the life of Jesus, what did Jesus do? How did Jesus interact with his disciples? What did he do with them? He had his large group gatherings where he's teaching, he's doing things like the Sermon on the Mount. He had small group gatherings where he's debriefing with them, and then within that, he had smaller groups, and then he sent them out. He did things with them, and he told them to go do things. He wanted them to be hands-on in bringing the kingdom. And I think that there's kind of a blueprint there. I think that Jesus was a smart guy, and we should learn from him. Any disagreements on that, by the way? Okay, good. What I want to do right now is just sort of talk about our current program, what things currently look like, and then where I think we can go. On Sunday mornings, we have something that we call Uprising. It's a large group gathering, anywhere between 8 and 15 students, where it's basically just Bible teaching. Again, we went through the Gospel of Mark together. Now we're going to go through Philippians. It's just kind of straight up, hey, what does the Bible say? How do we respond? On Wednesday nights, we have Fuel, which is again kind of another one of these larger group gatherings, if you will. It's basically, we do games and hang out and, you know, prizes and stuff like that, and we do some sort of topical discussion. Right now, we just finished a series on courage, and I'm totally blanking on what we're doing next, but I promise I have something. So that's basically our Wednesday night program. Every now and then on a Sunday night, as some of you have either come to or hosted, we do Snash, which is Sunday night at someone's house. No, the answer to your question, we are not getting smashed, okay? This is Snash, all right? This is different. It's essentially another one of these large group gatherings. We do games, we spend time together, we really get to know each other, get to interact with each other. This past Sunday, we were over at the Morrows. I was reminded why I really shouldn't play football. I'm finally at that age, by the way, where everything hurts, okay? I've finally gotten to this point where I can actually regret doing stuff, and I really don't enjoy it, and some of you are laughing at me, and that's okay. But again, it's another one of these gatherings where we get to spend time with the students, hopefully get to know them a little better, and to play games and stuff together. We also do occasional service opportunities. We've got the food bank, we did Operation Christmas Child, and we've served together a couple other times throughout the year. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what our program is. What I want to do, though, is talk about why I think what we're doing right now isn't quite hitting the mark. It's not quite meeting the need, and where we can go from that. So this is the section of our current problems. Sunday mornings, plain and simple. It's just too early. Junior and senior high students simply are not awake yet. For those of you who either have teenagers or have been a teenager, you know that 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning or 9:30, when we're trying to do this stuff with them, it's just not the best time. Their biological clocks are not there. I don't see that as like a spiritual issue. I don't see that as, oh, we need to, you know, correct that or something. It's just a matter of, that's how they're wired, and I need to tailor my program to that, not try to, I don't know, fix something that I can't fix. So that's Sunday mornings. Wednesday nights, we don't have enough time or space to accomplish what's really possible there. Especially when Wednesday Night Connections is going on. It's really nice that the church provides us dinner, which is just awesome. It's a huge blessing. But when we do dinner for 45 minutes or an hour, that basically leaves us with an hour to do our whole program, including announcements, games, teaching, you know, whatever else we want to do. We don't really have the ability to do small groups because every room in the church is being used, and we don't have like the leaders to do it. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Sunday nights seem to be working okay for us, but we're limited in places that we can gather, meals, you know, people who can host us and provide meals for us, especially with a younger group, which our group is not entirely, but it's primarily junior high students. There's mobility and transportation issues. There are issues with some parents saying, oh, I don't really know these people, do I want my kid, you know, going to their house, which is an unfortunate thing, but it is something, you know, that needs to be considered. And so it messes with the flow of what could go on there, because we're having to give students directions, oh, here's how you get there, or here's where we're meeting this week. And so it's just providing a little bit of chaos in that regard. When it comes to our service opportunities, we're finding, first of all, that they are difficult to coordinate. And what I mean by that is this. For example, and I don't mean to diminish a particular organization, but we went to the Solenko Food Bank a couple months ago. I called them 3 times to make sure they knew we were coming and to find out, you know, what should we bring, where do we need to go, all this stuff. And sure enough, we show up that Saturday morning and they say, oh, we didn't know you're coming. Really? And again, that's not to say they're a bad organization. It's just they are currently not particularly well set up for us to have a long, ongoing relationship with. It's just, you know, we brought our students there, and some of you guys know junior high students, okay? I love our junior hires, but when they don't have something to do, they turn into little terrorists, all right? And so that just, again, not that I don't want to go back there, or, oh, we refuse to do anything with them, but I just, you know, we're finding that it's hard to find these places in our community where we can serve consistently, and even when we have the places, sometimes we don't have the students, because they have, you know, their athletic things going on, or academics, or family things, or whatever. And so if I say be at church at 10:30 on a Saturday morning, there are many of them who say that they want to come, but who just aren't able to. Another thing, and this is huge to me, a huge limitation to us, is that we have a lack of leaders. We've got a lack of leaders. I don't care how good your youth pastor is. They're not going to be good at everything. I'm living proof of that, by the way. That was a chance for some of you to say, yes, you are, but that's okay, you missed it. I still love you. Our church, though, and many of you know this, is blessed with a handful of young adults who love Jesus and who I believe can have a fantastic impact in student ministry, but who can't be involved in student ministry and the young adult ministry at the same time. And so essentially what's happening is they're being forced to choose between their own spiritual growth and helping students grow. I don't think that that's a good choice to have to make. And so later we'll talk about a way we might be able to blend those things. But here's kind of the result of this. Here's where all of these problems, all these dead ends lead to. It's this. It's that our students are not growing like they could be, and so our student ministry is not what it could be, and so our church is not what it could be, and so our community is not what it could be. Let me go through that again, because this is key. You have to get this. You have to see how these connect. That our students are not growing like they could be, and so our student ministry is not yet what it could be, and so our church is not what it could be, and so our community is not what it could be. These are all connected. These are all things. One leads to another. I'm not saying we're in some dire place or these horrible circumstances that we need to dig ourselves out of, but just that we have such opportunity here and we're not hitting it, and we're missing things as a result. This is where we're at. Now I want to talk about where we could go. As I said before, I've been asking God what it would look like for us as a church to create a student ministry that is just a holistic environment, a holistic opportunity, a place where students can come and learn how to do these things, how to love God, to love others, and to transform the world. These are just some questions that I've been asking. What would our calendar look like? What would our facility look like? What would our leadership look like? How would our students' lives be changed? How would our leaders' lives be changed? How would families be changed if this stuff is happening? I've been asking, is it possible for us in the realm of student ministry to change the expectations that students, leaders, parents, and churches have when it comes to student ministry? The central question that I'm asking basically is this: what would student ministry look like if it was first about God, and then about the students, and then about everything else? What I want to do for you is unpack this idea where I think this could look like in our church. I want to invite you to look at something that we're going to call the fish cellar. Fish because, as many of you know, the fish is a historic symbol of Jesus, and cellar because we meet in the basement of a church, and it just sounds better than fish basement. What would the fish cellar be? It would be this: one night a week in which we would probably, I'm thinking we would meet in Keeler Hall because we need the space to be able to make some of this happen, and we would turn this place, and this should be on your sheet, into the most God-honoring, student-friendly place on earth. We would transform this place into the most God-honoring, student-friendly place on earth. And it would be marked by these things. This is just a couple things that came to the top of my head. Interactive games, live worship, relevant teaching, dynamic small groups. Okay, these are here, cool. And a field that says, we just want students here. We love students. We want all students to be here. I'll go through that again. Interactive teaching, live worship, interactive games, live worship, relevant teaching, and dynamic small groups. That's what I think we could pull off here. And let's dissect that a little bit. We'd have plenty of games available: board games, video games, card games, whatever. If there's a game out there that students want to play and it's not like throw rocks at each other, we'll do it and we'll have it. And we'd have like this coffee house or this snack bar where we would sell soda and candy and probably not coffee because I don't need these kids all that caffeinated. And just whatever it is, we'd sell it at cost to students. Whatever we buy it for is whatever we sell it to them for. Just giving them a chance to bring their homework or bring their friends and just come and hang out for a little while. And we would have leaders who would give of themselves to fully engage students in their world. That would be the key element, and again, we'll talk about that a little bit more. Now, in order to make this happen, let's say we go this route. In order to make this happen, what do we need to pull this off? How would this look? First of all, I think, well, it's pretty obvious, but we need God. He's a pretty big deal. Neither you nor I, at our best moments, can truly change people's hearts and minds, especially junior and senior high kids. We need God to do that. We need His power. We need His presence. We need His Spirit, because programs and activities don't change people. God changes people. And if we don't have Him, we are wasting our time. We would need prayer. We would need leaders and parents who would regularly take time out of their week, wherever they are, whatever they're doing, just to pray specifically for our student ministry. We would need this to be not just an event or an activity where we meet for prayer a few minutes beforehand, but where we have leaders, volunteers, parents, whatever, just praying, who are willing to give of their time and their energy to simply help students, to love them, to come alongside them, and to help them to learn to love God, love others, and transform the world. Now, what I want to do is, for those of you who might be, sort of considering this, or maybe you're kind of thinking about some of this, let you know what some of these leadership roles might look like. What kinds of things, what kinds of people will we need to be able to pull this off? And we're just going to go through that list briefly. First of all, we would need our advanced team. Basically, what an advanced team is this. If we're meeting somewhere, it's a shared space, that requires us every week to basically set up and tear down that space. We would do tables, chairs, lights, stage. We're going big here. We're doing audio, video. We need all this stuff, set up and torn down every week. We need, of course, if we're going to do all this stuff, we need a worship team. We need a group of adults who would commit to helping to lead students through music, attitudes, and lifestyle. As many of you know, I'm not exactly a musical person, but I'm very blessed that our church has those people. And we would need a group of adults who would say, you know what, Steve, we are going to lead these students. We are going to help them come closer to Jesus. We'd need a snack team. Basically, a team that would kind of run our snack bar each week, that would sell things and make sure we have our fridge stocked with sodas and stuff, who would make change and keep track of stuff and just sort of help us create that environment by making this a place that students would want to come to. We also need a production team, basically a group who's kind of into some of these, the technology aspect. As you can see, I snagged Derek and Joe so far. For audio, video, lighting, whatever it is that we're doing, whatever environment it is that we're trying to create during that gathering. If we're going to do games, I think we need to, we should do them well, and so we would need what I would call the fun team. By the way, this does not mean there's a boring team. We would have a fun team, basically a group of leaders who would help lead students in group games, either ones that they find or they come up with, or ones that I would provide to them, just to get students interacting with each other, working together, competing with each other, that whole thing. We would need a teaching team, basically a rotation of adults who would be interested in helping to communicate biblical, relevant messages to students. Now, I should note that if we do form this, that this would be one of the more time-consuming aspects, just because it does take time, to study biblical topics, do interpretation. I'd be working with, whoever was on that team just to make sure we're kind of, on the same page with that. And of course, as part of my job as the pastor to students, I have to make sure that they're being taught biblically and relevantly. If I have someone coming in here talking about the virtues of worshiping Buddha, we're going to have some issues, and I'll probably lose my job. Probably should too. We would need, we're almost done. We would need a small group leadership team. This to me is the heart and soul of student ministry. Basically a group of adults who would help to lead students in weekly discussions based on our teaching, where we really go deep. I honestly believe that you can have the most fun games and the most energetic teaching and the most dynamic worship, but if you don't have small groups, you don't have disciples, again, I will refer you to the Gospels for that. I think there's a reason Jesus did the whole small group thing. I want to talk briefly about the role of small group leaders, kind of what small group leaders would do. They would care for and look after the spiritual growth of students. Now this might sound a little daunting, okay, it's a very abstract way to put it, but the idea is there's training out there, there's stuff that's available to you and available to me that we could find together and read together and learn together. that would enable us to be able to do this, to come along students, to pace with students, and to every week after games, worship, and teaching, to break up into these small groups and really hopefully have this impact on these students. Small group leaders will be given a list of pre-prepared questions ahead of time, basically so that they know kind of how to foster this discussion, and we just see, okay, what does God do with it? Small group leader's job is this. It is to take the principles and the principles of the teaching that we've heard and simply to ask, how do these truths change the way that we think, feel, and live? How do they change the way that we think, feel, and live? Now, again, there's training available out there. I'm never going to try to tell someone, oh, hey, you're interested in leading a small group. Yeah, go do that. Let me know how that goes for you. Anyone who would say, hey, Steve, I want to help lead a small group is going to learn with me. We're going to kind of go together and figure out, okay, how do we do this? Real quick, what does it take, and this is kind of like for all of these roles, what does it take to do student ministry well, to be effective at leading it? These are the things that I think, and I'm pretty sure God thinks. A love for God, a heart for students, and a willingness to learn. I think that if you have those three things, God can use you no matter what your specialty is, no matter what your gifting is, no matter what your personality is. What I want to do right now is just sort of give you an idea of, okay, if we go this route, if we start doing this, what would a typical Sunday look like for us? And you can just sort of watch as we go through this. First of all, of course, here at church we have church. I think I have 10:30 up there, but it's actually 10:15 is what we're moving to. Once church is out, 11:30, 11:45, our advanced team would gather down here. We would do our tear down, our setup of tables, chairs, lights, stage, whatever it is that we're going to do. And then hopefully by 12:15 we get to go home. I am a fan of going home. We would meet up again with our worship and our production team at about 4 o'clock, and from 4 to 5:30, we'd have our run through where, whoever's doing lights, sound, video, music, whatever, they would kind of, go through their set, make sure everything's working smoothly. At about 5:30, we'd have a leaders meeting where we would just, sort of have prayer and dinner and just kind of discuss things. Also, real quick, this is huge for me, and I don't really know why, but if you ever decide to lead with us in student ministry, if you ever want to be a part of students' lives, if it's now, if it's 3, 5, 10 years down the road, I'm not going to have any hair in 10 years, we will always do our best, Mary Ann and I will, to meet whatever needs that you have. To me, it's very simple, it's very basic, that if you have people leading with you, especially around this time in the evening, it just makes sense to provide food for them. And so that's not coming out of our youth budget, that's just Mary Ann and I are going to do that because that's important to us. We want our leaders to know that they're loved, that they're cared for, and that they matter. So that would be from about 5:30 to 6:15, we'd meet and do that. 6:15 to 6:30, we just sort of do our odds and ends, wait for students to come. If there's anything that needs to be done, we'd sort of make that happen. Around 6:30 is when we'd hope that students would arrive. We do games, hang out, just spend time with them, ask them how their week was, see if they want to do anything with us, and just sort of hang out with them. Around 7 o'clock, we do announcements in our group games. That would be our fun team. They're kind of, heading that up. 7:20, we start our worship and our teaching. Do that for about half an hour, just based on, whatever it is that we're studying at the time. By about 7:50, we look to break up into our small groups. And again, we'd be able to use whatever places in the church, because the building's ours on Sunday nights. And then we'd wrap that up around 8:30, where we would once again meet up, whoever's around, we'll clean up, and then hopefully by 9 o'clock, we'd go home. So that's kind of an idea of what things would look like on a Sunday. I want to go through just some very, very general questions, and then we'll take questions if there's any outstanding ones. First of all, let's say, okay, this is interesting, maybe we should try this. If we do that though, how many hours am I looking at committing per week? Realistically, I think you're looking at between 4 and 10 hours, depending on what ministry areas you're involved in. Obviously, if you're leading worship or something like that, it's going to take a little more time out of your week than if you're just, leading a small group or helping with games. So that's kind of the general time commitment we'd be looking at. Do we have to do everything? Let's say, Steve, there's like 7 things in this list. Do I need to do all of them? My short answer would be, I don't think that anyone can do all these things well, and that my goal and the goal of our student ministry for our adults is always going to be to have people plugged into the areas that they fit in best. If you're this like, hey, really extroverted, outgoing person and you like leading games, hey, that's awesome. If you could live on like 30 words a month, chances are probably not going to be a good role for you. And my goal is always going to be to help people, to fit people into the roles that are best for them. Do I need to go to Memorial every Sunday to lead here? You know, what if I'm involved in another church, or you know, my family, you know, sometimes we're gone certain weeks, or you know, we're visiting other places. My answer for that would simply be that in order to lead well, you need to be getting fed somewhere. You need to be attending church regularly for your own good, for your own spiritual health. But that doesn't mean that you have to be here at this building every Sunday morning. Obviously, if this is your home church, that's great. If not, though, that would not necessarily preclude you from being involved in student ministry, as long as you're, you know, taking care of your own soul, because that's important. What about as far as the student ministry? Do I need to be there every week? One of the greatest fears of students, both like recognized and unrecognized, is that of rejection and abandonment. And I think that the single best way to overcome that is simply through consistency. And so my request would be that if any of you decide to partner with us in doing this, that you would choose to intentionally prioritize this student ministry, that this would be sort of your, either your only thing or your number one thing that you would give yourself to. What if I'm already feeling overwhelmed at home, you know, with work, home, church, you know, whatever? If this is not the time for you to be involved in something like this, that is totally fine. No one's going to look down on you for that. I just have to tell you a story because this is hilarious to me. I was doing a recruitment at a church a couple of years ago. I had a guy who came and who told me he was very interested, but I think he later figured out, you know, with work and stuff, it wasn't a good time for him. Well, he never told me that, and so I assume when someone doesn't show up for like a month, I get the idea. I'm walking down a hallway and I see him, and he knows that I see him, so he turns and he goes to like turn the other way. He smacked his face right into the side of a door frame. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Yes, I am a little sick like that. I was like, it's okay, man, you don't have to run. So if any of you are hearing this and you're like, hey, maybe I'll consider this, but it doesn't work out, that's okay, don't run. These things hurt, okay? We need to make sure that doesn't happen. You know, health insurance is going up, and we just don't need that to happen. Again, if you do want to be a part of something like this, that's great. Let's make it our priority together. Let's say, hey, you know what? God is calling us to student ministry. Let's do this well, and then see, you know, where things go. Don't run. Just don't. What about childcare? I know some of you guys have, you know, younger kids, and you're like, hey, I would love to be involved in student ministry. My short answer for that is just that Marianne and I are working on that. Big surprise, we are having a kid. I hope this is not a surprise, actually. We're going to need to find a babysitter for our kid, because it turns out they're not allowed to watch themselves. I just found this out recently. And so my thought is, if we're getting a babysitter for our kids, we could certainly try to do that for other people's kids as well. I don't want that to be like a, you know, a hindrance. So just, yeah, that's an option. We'll figure that out at some point, just like we'll figure out this whole kid thing. When will we start? September 8th is what we're looking at. I know this is early to be talking about the fall, but what I didn't want to do is try to have this gathering in June or July or August when everybody's gone. I wanted to start the conversation now and see, you know, if this is a direction that we want to go. But our launch day, our proposed day to give this a shot would be September 8th of this year. Are you open? Am I open to additional roles not listed on the places to serve? My short answer is yes, yes, and yes. I don't know all the needs of a student ministry. I don't know what everyone's good at. If you're like, hey, Steve, have you thought about this? Or, hey, you know, I have the ability to take care of this. As long as what you're good at is something that can help lead students to love God, love others, and transform the world, I'm for it. So if any of you have any ideas, hey, I would love to be involved in this, please, you know, don't feel like this suggested list of ideas is like set in stone. All right, with that, I am going to stop talking and ask, do you have any questions?